Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a really exciting and complex world. The rapid transformation of industries. We'll focus a lot on fashion, but the themes, they resonate everywhere. It's all driven by tech, global shifts, and what consumers want, which seems to change constantly.
It really does.
So we're digging into two pretty interesting sets of sources today. First up, this major report, The State of Fashion 2018 from McKinsey and the Business of Fashion.
No, 2018. Yeah, sounds like a while ago, right?
Yeah.
Especially now in 2025.
Exactly. But what's incredible is just how spot on this report was. It really laid out the big trends that haven't just stuck around, they've accelerated, shaping everything we see today.
It was remarkably prescient.
And to show this isn't just fashion, we're also looking at, well, the sheer volume of collaborative articles popping up on places like LinkedIn. It shows everyone in every field is grappling with this need for fast adaptation for new knowledge.
Right, that constant learning curve.
So our mission today, basically, cut through the noise,
Yeah.
pull out the really key insights from all this material. Think of it as your shortcut to understanding the big forces at play in this world that feels, well, the report called it predictably unpredictable.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how these sources, a deep dive report on one industry and then this broad collection of learning topics, they actually point to the same challenge.
Right.
How do how do you stay agile? How do you make smart calls when everything's changing so fast? We'll try and connect those dots for you.
Okay, let's start right there then. This idea, predictably unpredictable. The report, it was clear. Geopolitical shifts, economic wobbles, just general uncertainty. That's not a phase. It's the new normal.
Mm-hmm.
And for fashion, like lots of industries, it meant they had to sort of toughen up. Executives basically accepted unpredictability and just focused on what they could control.
Which raises the big question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What can you actually control in that kind of environment? I mean, the 2018 report pointed to things like potential border-adjusted taxes in the U.S. That was a big worry. Then NAFTA uncertainties, stuff that really messed with supply chains.
Yeah, I remember that.
But then you have the CEO of Levi Strauss, and he gives this great long-term view. Says, they've seen over 30 presidents, world wars, the Great Depression.
Wow.
So his point was you focus on what you can do, your resources, your strategy, regardless of the external chaos. It's about resilience.
That makes sense. And here's something really interesting the report picked up on, which definitely panned out.
Yeah.
All this talk of nationalism, isolationism.
It is rising then.
But the report argued globalization wasn't actually stalling. It was just changing. Entering new phase, powered by digital connections, data flows crossing borders like never before.
Exactly. And that digital globalization stepping back, it just created this incredibly intense competitive landscape.
How so?
Well, suddenly, relying on your physical shops or distribution network wasn't enough. That advantage kind of evaporated. And it paved the way for these micro multinationals. The report said 86% of startups, even back then, were doing business across borders.
Like MatchesFashion.com. Started small in London.
Right. And now sells everywhere online. That kind of jump just wasn't feasible before this digital wave.
And a huge driver of this, the report was really clear on this, was the rise of Asian trailblazers. It predicted back then for 2018 that over half of all clothes and shoe sales would be outside Europe and North America.
And looking back from 2025, I mean, that wasn't just right. It was almost an understatement. That trend has just continued, solidifying Asia's, growing power in the market.
It's not just about selling to Asia, though, is it?
No, absolutely not. What's key is that Asian companies are often tech leaders. China, for example, was already way ahead on e-commerce, social media back in 2018. Companies like Alibaba, Tencent, they were innovating.
So they're setting the pace in some ways.
In many ways. And it's not just consumer tech. Think about manufacturing. Chinese firms like Suzhou Tianyuan Garments opening a high-tech robotics factory in the U.S.
Wow, a T-shirt factory run by robots.
Yeah. It shows the innovation flows both ways now. It's a truly global exchange.
Okay, so global shifts, tech leaps. What does this mean for the average person, the consumer? The sources are unanimous here. The customer is king or queen, absolutely in charge, mostly thanks to tech.
And their expectations are sky high. They want convenience, good prices, quality, yes, but also constant newness, and crucially, a personal touch.
That sounds demanding.
It is.
Ah.
And it leads straight into this trend the report called platforms first, meaning people increasingly start their shopping journey on big platforms. Amazon, Alibaba, JDD.com, you go there first. Why? They're convenient, they seem to know what you want, the selection is vast.
Right, it's just easier sometimes.
Exactly. The CEO of Levi's said it plainly. Amazon was their fastest growing customer. Brands just couldn't ignore these platforms, even if they had worries about, pricing control or how their brand looked.
It's like you have to be there.
You have to be there. But all that choice creates another problem, just too much information, right? Overload.
Yeah, definitely feel that sometimes.
And that's where getting personal became, as the report put it, the holy grail. Personalization, curation. That's how you cut through the noise.
So how do they do that? It's all about the data, isn't it?
Fundamentally, yes. Look at Alibaba back then, using AI, fashion AI they called it, to suggest clothes that go together based on what you browsed. It could even create outfits for you in a physical store mirror.
Whoa.
And JD.com, they were working with social media giants in China, search engines, gathering, frankly, unprecedented amounts of data just to tailor marketing perfectly.
That level of data gathering.
Yeah.
It was a game changer.
Absolutely. And so much of this is happening on our phones. The mobile obsessed trend, discovery, browsing, buying, it's all shifting to mobile.
Especially in Asia, right?
Yeah.
The report said something like 80% of online shopping in China was mobile.
Over 80%. Even back then, they were leading the charge. It raises the question, though, why the difference in adoption? Europe and the U.S. were slower on mobile payments, for instance, even though hundreds of fintech options existed.
Inertia, maybe? Habit?
Could be. But the prediction was clear. Mobile transactions would boom everywhere. Apple Pay was gaining ground. And you heard execs like Tory Burch's CEO saying, yeah, the U.S. is big, but China, massive market for growth, driven by mobile.
And the engine behind a lot of this personalization, the speed, the mobile experience, it's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
AI gets real, as the report said.
Yeah, it stopped being sci-fi and became practical. Over 75% of online fashion retailers were planning AI investments back then.
Using it for what, though? Chatbots?
Chatbots that could handle customer service, sure, but also things like anticipatory shipping.
Where they send stuff before you order it.
Kind of. Amazon predicts what's likely to be popular in your area and moves the stock closer before people even click buy. It's all about speed and prediction.
That's pretty smart. A bit creepy, maybe.
Well, and that's the trade-off the report highlighted. AI isn't just about being efficient, it's about deeper engagement. But it relies on data. Customer privacy becomes essentially a form of currency you trade for these tailored, super convenient experiences.
A balance we're definitely still figuring out today.
For sure.
Okay, so this environment, super competitive, tech-fueled, customer in charge, it obviously forced businesses to change radically. The report talks about the need for speed.
Oh, yeah. Fast fashion was already huge, growing over 20% in the 3 years before the report. And the top players were slashing their design-to-shelf times like crazy. Weeks, not months.
And what did that do to traditional stores, the brick-and-mortar guys?
Put them under immense pressure. Foot traffic was falling off a cliff. U.S. department store sales were dropping sharply. The report even predicted 20% of malls would close by 2020.
Which largely happened, didn't it?
It did. The CEO of Tory Burch had some harsh words. Said department stores needed to radically change or it's over for them.
Wow. What did she suggest?
Basically, become landlords. Act like real estate agents. Let brands create their own shop-in-shops, maybe add entertainment. Stop trying to be everything to everyone. A stark warning.
And this pressure, it also affects how brands handle their stock, right? All the stuff that doesn't sell at full price.
Exactly, leading to the off-price deception.
Deception. Sounds dramatic.
Well, the idea is that the growing discount sector outlets, TJ Maxx type places, seems like a great way to clear out unsold inventory. But the risk, especially big in the U.S. market, is that it erodes your brand image, makes people less willing to pay full price, and it kills your margins.
So it's a short-term fix with long-term problems.
Potentially, yeah. How do brands avoid that trap? The CEO of Tapestry, that's Coach, Kate Spade, pointed out Europe had some protections. Market fragmentation, rules about sales periods.
Unlike the U.S.
Right. In the U.S., wholesale deals often gave department stores the power to slash prices, which could really hurt how a brand was perceived.
Makes sense.
He also noted, and this is key, a growing demand for niche brands, for something special. People moving away from everyone wearing the same thing. Richard Liu from JD.com said the same about China. Consumers want something special, something you cannot find in your circle.
So uniqueness becomes a value in itself.
Precisely. Away from mass towards niche and special.
Okay, so with all these pressures, all this change, how did companies actually survive, let alone thrive? The report mentioned startup thinking.
Yeah, basically established companies trying to act more like nimble startups, more agile, more collaborative, more open to new ideas.
Easier said than done, I imagine.
Definitely. And it's not just about processes, it's about the culture. The Gucci CEO put it perfectly. People are at the center of everything. Meaning you have to build a culture of respect, trust, transparency, where people feel safe taking risks. He even talked about having a shadow COMEX, a kind of junior executive board with younger employees to get different perspectives.
That's interesting, like internal disruption.
Sort of, and looking for talent differently, not just traditional hiring. It's about fostering innovation from anywhere, changing the internal mindset.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, but still crucial for value. Sustainability, credibility. The report flagged this as becoming much more important.
Hugely important, and even more so now. It's moving way past just, greenwashing or feel-good marketing.
Right.
It needs to be baked into the whole system. Thinking about the circular economy, reuse, recycle, redesign right from the start throughout the whole value chain.
The scale of the problem is massive, though, isn't it? Especially with fashion.
Oh, absolutely. Dame Ellen MacArthur laid it out starkly. Business as usual could mean 20 million tons of plastic microfibers in the ocean by 2050. Just from our clothes.
That's staggering.
It is. She called for a completely new textiles economy, said it's a $500 billion opportunity, but it needs everyone working together, brands, suppliers, governments. Unprecedented collaboration.
So what are companies doing now, or starting to do back then?
Exploring things like clothing rental or leasing models, using much more recycled material. These are practical first steps towards that bigger vision.
And this need for new solutions, for constant adaptation. It really brings us back to those LinkedIn articles, doesn't it?
It really does. They provide this fascinating parallel. It shows this relentless need for knowledge, for figuring things out, isn't just a fashion industry thing. It's everywhere.
Like what kind of topics?
All sorts. You see fundamental questions like, how do you keep knowledge when people leave? That had over 100 contributions. A classic problem.
Yeah, every company struggles with that.
Right next to things like effective training on the latest AI tools, which only had a few contributions back then, showing how new and fast-moving that area was.
So it's a snapshot of what professionals are wrestling with day to day.
Exactly. It's this blend of the timeless challenges and the absolute cutting edge. These articles, mixing AI-generated starting points with real expert insights, they reflect how people are actually learning and problem-solving now, managing deadlines, using data, career shifts. It's all there.
It really drives home that continuous learning isn't like a nice-to-have anymore.
No way. It's essential. It's survival. Just as vital as business agility, you have to keep learning, keep adapting, just to keep up.
Wow. What an incredible journey through these forces really reshaping everything. From that predictably unpredictable world the 2018 report saw coming to the super empowered, mobile-first, personalized everything consumer and this urgent drive for sustainability, new business models. It's just crystal clear that being adaptable, being bold, constantly learning, that's the only way forward.
Absolutely. And looking at those LinkedIn articles, the sheer range and volume, it just hammers home that core truth. In a world changing this fast, your ability to quickly find, contribute to, and make sense of knowledge from all kinds of experts, that's as crucial as any piece of tech.
It's a skill in itself.
It really is. Your own professional value now depends heavily on how fast and how well you can learn, adapt, and maybe even help create that new knowledge.
So as you, our listener, reflect on all this, here's something to chew on, a final thought. If knowledge itself is now being built collaboratively, almost in real time, and it's instantly accessible, how does your role change? Does it shift from just needing to be informed to needing to be an active player in shaping the knowledge that actually drives your field forward?